Today, an indictment was unsealed, charging Donald J. Trump with conspiring to defraud the United States, conspiring to disenfranchise voters, and conspiring and attempting to obstruct an official proceeding.
Former President Donald Trump has now been indicted for a third time, and this one is a biggie because this is over his attempt to steal the 2020 election. So, in this video, I will go over what this indictment says, including the 4 felony counts. I will get to the announcement from Special Counsel Jack Smith. I will also get to the reaction from Donald Trump, which is always fun. And I'm also going to show you a very interesting bit of information that's going to make you very happy. So, and that's in addition to this indictment, which should already make you happy. But first, this is the actual indictment here. Let me zoom into the 4 counts and read them off. So we have count 1, conspiracy to defraud the United States. Count 2, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding. Count 3, obstruction of an attempt to obstruct an official proceeding. And count 4, conspiracy against rights. As Politico summarizes here, the indictment puts Trump at the apex of a wide-ranging scheme that included amplifying knowingly false claims about election fraud, pressuring state legislatures to falsely assert the election outcome was in doubt, assembling false slates of presidential electors to force a conflict, and pressuring then Vice President Mike Pence to attempt to subvert the election unilaterally on January 6, 2021. So now I'm going to get to the announcement from Special Counsel Jack Smith, and then I'm going to show you this very interesting bit of information before I get to the reaction from Trump. But first, check out the announcement.
The attack on our nation's capital on January 6th, 2021 was an unprecedented assault on the seat of American democracy. As described in the indictment, it was fueled by lies. Lies by the defendant targeted at obstructing a bedrock function of the U.S. government, the nation's process of collecting, counting, and certifying the results of the presidential election. The men and women of law enforcement who defended the U.S. Capitol on January 6th are heroes. They are patriots and they are the very best of us. They did not just defend a building or the people sheltering in it. They put their lives on the line to defend who we are as a country and as a people. They defended the very institutions and principles that define the United States. Since the attack on our Capitol, the Department of Justice has remained committed to ensuring accountability for those criminally responsible for what happened that day. This case is brought consistent with that commitment, and our investigation of other individuals continues. In this case, my office will seek a speedy trial so that our evidence can be tested in court and judged by a jury of citizens.
What does a speedy trial mean? That, I think, is the biggest question right now. And that goes for all these indictments. Is any sentencing going to get done before Trump has the ability to run in the general election? Because if he runs and wins, all this is going away. You realize that, right? Like these will all go away. So one of these have to get done, and there has to be a sentence put out before he runs in the general. Otherwise, this is all for naught. But we're going to see where all that goes. Let me get to this interesting bit of information that came out with this announcement. This shared by Midas Touch. Massive breaking news. The judge appointed to the Trump 2020 interference case is Judge Tanya Chutkan. Chutkan, an Obama appointee, is the only federal judge in D.C. who has sentenced January 6 defendants to sentences longer than the DOJ had requested. Yeah. So, not too bad, considering, how many Trump-appointed judges there are and how many have been a part of this process throughout. But here you have an Obama appointee. Not terrible news. In fact, you could say this is good news. But again, we're getting ahead of ourselves here. He's still innocent until proven guilty, of course. So no rushing to judgment, okay? Let's get to more on what's in this indictment. So from Washington Post here, quote, despite having lost, the defendant was determined to remain in power, the indictment charges, saying Trump unleashed a blizzard of lies about purported mass voter fraud and then tried to get state, local, and federal officials to act to change the vote results. Quote, these claims were false, and the defendant knew that they were false. In fact, the defendant was notified repeatedly that his claims were untrue, often by the people on whom he relied for candid advice on important matters, and who were best positioned to know the facts. And he deliberately disregarded the truth, the indictment states. And this was clear during the entire Jan 6 probe and everything that came out during that. So, everything said, yes, he has to be proven guilty, of course. But based on all of the evidence we've seen, he's guilty. Based on everything we have seen, it's very clear what he did, what people around him said afterward, what was happening. This, again, we're talking about Republicans giving the goods on Trump. So this is not some, as we're going to get to Trump's reaction here, not some crooked attempt to try and, steal the election for 2024 for Biden. This is all stuff that has been out there. None of this is a secret. This is just finally being put into an indictment. Here we have Trump's reaction. I hear that deranged Jack Smith, in order to interfere with the presidential election of 2024, will be putting out yet another fake indictment of your favorite president, me, at 5 p.m. Why didn't they do this 2.5 years ago? If they did this 2.5 years ago, Trump would be. What do you think Trump would do? Oh, yes, handcuff me, take me away. I'm guilty. No, he'd be making some other defense. This is just, they had to put the case together. I do kind of agree with Trump that it would have been nice if this happened sooner, but in the defense of the prosecutor here, they took their time, really went through everything because they're going after, again, a former president. They got to make sure all their bases are covered. So they took their time. He goes on to say here, why did they wait so long? Because they wanted to put it in right in the middle of my campaign. Again, on that point, if they really wanted to disrupt the campaign, they would have done this 2.5 years ago because there would be no campaign. Doing this now actually risks Trump winning before anything happens. Anyways, going on here from CNN, just about a little bit about Jack Smith. Smith was the head of the section when the department failed to convict former senator and vice presidential candidate John Edwards, a Democrat, in a corruption case in 2012, and when then Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell, a Republican, was indicted in 2014. He also oversaw the investigation into former House Majority Leader Tom DeLay, a Republican, closing the probe in 2010 without bringing charges. So he has investigated Democrats in the past. And there's also been investigations into Republicans that didn't go anywhere. This is the idea that Jack Smith is Merrick Garland brought him in specifically to separate himself from what was going on, from this whole indictment. So Jack Smith he's not corrupt, clearly, based on his history. And also you have former Trump officials defending Jack Smith. So you could read more on that. I'll link to all this below the video in case you want to go into any of these details. A couple last things here. I'm not going to read this whole statement because it's the same crap it always is. But Trump put out a full statement. I'll read the first paragraph here. He says, this is nothing more than the latest corrupt chapter in the continued pathetic attempt by the Biden crime family and their weaponized Department of Justice to interfere with the 2024 presidential election, in which President Trump is the undisputed frontrunner and leading by substantial margins. Okay, you could just tell by the language how ridiculous this defense is. And then he also put this out about 30 minutes ago. Why didn't they bring this ridiculous case 2.5 years ago? They waited right in the middle of my campaign. That's why. Or sorry, they wanted it right in the middle of my campaign. Again, it would have been more effective if they actually did this 2.5 years ago. So there you go. Do you think there will be a sentence before the general election? Let me know in the comments.